Hi guys, thank you for being here. This tutorial is creating first layers on a cheap lined composition notebook. So I approach this surface very differently than say Bristol paper or a mixed media sketchbook because this paper is super cheap, so the media works in completely different ways. Now the paints do tend to sit on top of the page much like Bristol paper, so you still get that raw unfinished look, but that's where the similarity ends. So before I begin, I would like to flip through and show you why this surface is unique. The first thing is there are a lot of tears in the pages, so I tend to do a lot of mending my page, which is simply just adding collage and different pieces of paper to fortify the surface because the water tends to make a hole in the page just because it is so thin and cheap. So one of the first differences is that right off the bat, when I work in this kind of a surface, I tend to use collage and thicker paints rather than the very watery paints that I'm going to use on Bristol paper or a mixed media sketchbook. So this here is on Bristol paper, and as you can see, there's just a lot of watery paints, and so it's very different than this type of a surface over here where I just go right in, I put my collage, I put really thick paints on right away, and so I build my surface up differently. The second thing is I tend to use a lot of text when I'm working in this composition notebook because I do use these books as journals. And then what I'll do is I will go over top of it and paint over my writing journals, but I'll still let some of the text show through. And I also just make a lot of designs and patterns using a cheap ballpoint pen. And I could do that on my Bristol paper, but I tend not to. Now, I don't know, I might start incorporating more text on my Bristol paper in the future, but it's just like right off the bat, there are lines in here, so I just tend to go in and write. Another thing is the media tends to bleed through the pages, and I really love that about this paper because that doesn't happen with Bristol paper or a mixed media sketchbook slash art journal. But right off the bat, I have this surface that's not a white page. So I can incorporate this into my page once I start working on it, and it'll do it for 2 or 3 pages. And it requires no effort on my part at all. But it's still a very beautiful, interesting, organic kind of a splash of paint. Now, this book here, I think I started working on it about 3 years ago, and it's a work in progress. So there are some pages that are completely empty, and then there are some pages that have a first layer or a second layer or even a third layer background, and then some pages have images on them, but it's not like a completed art journal by any stretch. But it's really great for me to show you like how I work differently. So this is probably a first layer, and I can see the white page over here, and but right off the bat, that's some collage, that's collage, that's collage, and this is all very thick opaque paint, and it's a first layer. So this is a first layer as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of text on this page, and I really love that kind of way that I can use writing and I can just make it part of my art. But it's not, you know, it's part of me just journaling as my journaling practice, and then I incorporate it into my art. So again, that is the white page, but it's all very thick layers right off the bat. Now this over here is reverse writing. So what probably happened is I had journaled on this page, and then once I added the paints, it bled through, but the writing is reversed. So I just absolutely love this text, and I'm going to go in when I do use my pages and I do work on this. I've already got a page that has so much interest, and it's already like not a blank white page, and I really didn't do anything. It's stuff that has bled through from this page. And again, there's a reverse writing which bled through from this previous page over here. Again, this bled through from the underside of this page, and I can incorporate that into my page when I start working on there. So these books actually are so you know, they're so cheap. They're like $1. And so when I do work in them, I tend to be looser and freer because I'm not worried so much about, you know, well, I paid $30 for this sketchbook, and, you know, I do have that kind of a more of a sense of freedom when I work in these books because they are really cheap. And that's another great thing about working in these lined composition books. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to pick this page because I really love this text that is already there. Now, I've picked a few paints on my palette, and this is Holbein's Opera in just this luscious pink. And this is my cadmium red light Liquitex. And then I have my Blick Red Deep over here in, like, it's a really luscious red. And I'm just gonna start off by, let me just pull these pins out here. And I'm gonna start off by adding my paints in a very thick layer here. So I'm going to mix it with that orange. And now I'm just going to add some of this red. It's still a very meditative, playful process, so I still retain that aspect of it because I'm not worried about, you know, what is the image going to look like. I'm not worried about any of that. So I do bring that sense of mindfulness and meditation and beginner's mind into this process as well. But the thing is, I do start off like using collage right away. So I'm gonna get my collage stash over here, and I'm just gonna look for pieces that I want. So I want that because I tend to use these dictionary pages for my faces. So I want that, and maybe So I like to go for thicker papers when I'm working on this cheap paper because I'm also like building up my page. And I have this handmade paper here, which is really beautiful. I don't know if I can, it's really beautiful, so I don't know, I might see if I can use that. Now my page isn't very large, so I think that might be enough collage, honestly, because I don't have a large surface like I did with the Bristol paper. So let's see here. Now I do want to use that text, so I don't know if I want to cover it up, but I am gonna go like that. So I'm just using Mod Podge, and I'm just gonna adhere it to my page. And whether this shows through in, you know, in the final image, I'm not even thinking about that. Like right now, I'm just building up my page and adding interest and really just still playing and approaching my page with a sense of curiosity. And again, I'm going to repeat this particular collage 3 times on my page. Now, I love this paper, and I'm gonna see if I can use it here, but I don't know if it's going to work for this particular page, but let me see. Ooh, I really love that. Oh my God, it's beautiful. I think this is actually Thai paper. It's handmade. And it's a very tactile, like it's got a lot of texture to it. Ooh, I just love that. Oh my God, I love that. So I'm gonna do it 3 times. So because my page is not that large, I think I'm gonna, like, I cut that up so it's like thinner, and I think I'm just gonna add it like so. And I'm just layering that over top of the collage there. So you can layer collage, you know, you can put 2 or 3 or even more. That's, you know, totally fine. You can layer collage over collage. I love that aspect of mixed media, just finding new ways of layering stuff. Oh, I absolutely love this paper because it just gives it such a punch. It's a very small piece of the paper, but I love the circles, I love the lines, I love the thick black marks. I just absolutely love it. I'm just gonna sit here and appreciate it for a moment. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just using my Stabilo pencil, and because I want to incorporate this text here, I'm gonna not put any collage for her face for right now and see if I can use that text as part of her face. And I didn't plan this, but I love that arc over top of her head. Okay, and I didn't plan this either, but those suggest breasts, so I really love that. I really love that. And I don't know if I'm gonna keep it, but for right now, I really love that. So now what I'm gonna do is I really like the text over there for her face and into her neck. And what I'm gonna do is cover all this up here so the text on her face and her neck really shows through. Now this is a very hot page. I need to introduce some cools, but this is just my first layer, first/second layer, so I can get away with all the hots. But I hope you can see how this composition lined notebook allows me to approach the page in a very different way than I do, say, my last video, which was on Bristol paper. Because initially for the Bristol paper, it was just like a lot of very watery paints and inks, and I didn't have any text at all in my first layers. But right off the bat, I'm gonna just pull this out again. Right off the bat, you can see the difference. So there's a lot more of the white page. It's very watery, and this is my first layer. It's a first layer, but over here, this is a first layer as well. And already you can tell the difference between the two. So it allows me to work in a very different way. Now you can still incorporate a lot of these techniques on the Bristol paper, but some of them, like this bleeding through text from the previous page, that's not gonna happen on the Bristol paper. So what I'm gonna do is just allow this to completely dry, but for this purposes of this video, this is my creating first layers on a cheap lined composition notebook, and I will let this completely dry and then I'll come back in and work on it. But this is the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you for my next video. Thank you so much. Bye.